This is going to be a video that talks about supporting fundamentals in the lane, and how they have to tie into the core you're supporting as well as the lane you're playing against. The big fundamentals we're going to be talking about is making sure you secure range creeps, which often puts your core out of position. We're going to talk about management of pull camps and how you can gauge the importance of each one in any given lane. And we're also going to talk about when and why to be aggressive and how to position yourself properly as support to make sure you're not playing overly aggressive, but to also make sure you're not playing overly passive. Now let's go and dive deep into this lane. A little bit of examples to talk about fundamentals support that you can work on.
Banana slam jam.
I'm going to be a polite flame of my 5 position here. He did a couple things right, but the majority of the things he did in the laning stage were wrong. And I want to talk about it, and I want to talk about why. First and foremost, I level rage because I'm against a double nuke lane. One of them is a stun, and the other one's a nuke, and if I were to eat these abilities, I'd take a lot of damage. And they're pretty predictable, right? I have time to react to the impale, and I also have time to react to the clap, and he's often going to clap when he goes for creeps. So that's what I'm going to do. But when you look at my hero, one facet of the lane that you always need to consider is range creeps. Range creeps put you out of position. And any lane that punishes positioning makes it really difficult to get range creeps. So any supports with stuns, and offlaners especially with slows, can tend to be an issue. Heroes like Darkseer and stuff that don't have any way to hurt me when I go for the range, that's not usually a big concern. But against a lane like this, as a carry, I'm absolutely terrified to go for the range creep. And we're going to talk about the AA in regards to the range creep. So AA does have a spell that helps secure range. Sometimes you just have to give up a range. That's not ideal in any lane. But he does have a spell that secures range. And he chose to level it, which is good. And he uses it to harass the Brewmaster. But here's where he's going to go wrong. So notice how the range is now in peril. All I need from him is for him to secure this range for me. At least try. I mean, that's like the biggest thing. Just try. And he wasn't even looking at using his E on the range. He just simply pelted the lion with it and didn't even attempt to attack the range. Even if he didn't have his E off cooldown in time, it was super important that he did that. So notice here how much emphasis the opponent's putting on range creeps. They see me going for it, and they see AA over here, and they're going to say, oh, let's try to get this range creep deny. And they try to go for the impale, which I dodged, thankfully, and then they both go for the deny. Meanwhile, my AA's harassing. And this is just such a huge difference in priorities between us and the opponent. And as much as I love this guy, he tried his best. He really needs to focus on the things that matter in lane, and there's a reason why the opponent dual denied the range. So now this is a lane where we lack wave clear, and they have pretty good wave clear, which means the lane will most of the time be pushed into us. So when the lane is pushed into us, that means that when we think about pull camps, we don't necessarily need our small camp. Like, yes, you should pretty much always deward the small camp and try to have one accessible, but it's really important that they don't have a large camp because those early pulls can be really costly to us. Because when we're level 1 or 2 and we're trying to walk through creep waves in order to get to them, just in general, putting ourselves out of position to try to contest the pull camp, it's the same thing as range creeps. You're putting yourself out of position, and if you're getting stuns and slows, you're often going to take a shit ton of damage and potentially die. And at the very least, it's going to put the lane in a good spot. So notice how the lane is pushed into us, as predictable based on the hero matchup. It's 149, really good time for the opponent to pull. This is a moment where the AA, rather than being behind me, is supposed to be scouting over here. Because being here and being here is the exact level of safety compared, like they're both the same thing. And one of them helps prevent the one thing the opponent could do right now, which is pull. Otherwise, I've just got 3 creeps in front of me. I'm going to sit it outside my tower, and we're going to get the lane in a good spot. So we're considering lane equilibrium, and pull camps are the biggest part of maintenance of lane equilibrium for supports. Instead, he's sitting behind me, and thus the lion simply gets a pull off, and this is going to put the lane equilibrium against us. The AA also walks up late and gets hit by 2 spells. This gives lion a deny, a last hit on the range. And now, there's something even more important. So when you do this, the jungle creeps are going to die. And it's super important that at this stage in the game, the jungle creeps are a huge swing in net worth and XP. Every bit of XP that one team gets is just extra in the lane, and if one person gets the last hit, it's effectively worth twice as much because the other team's not getting it. So I see this as a carry, and this creep means a shit ton. Anytime the opponent gets a pull off, you should always look to contest this pull. Nothing really matters anymore. Like, we need to make sure both of us are in XP range, so they don't get 2/3 of the XP, because everyone around splitting the XP. Notice how the Brewmaster, the guy that was away from it, is making sure he's in XP range. I need this to be contested, because I expected Lion to just impale it from the low ground, because he can see me from this creep. And AA is instead going to try to get a pull off on a camp that doesn't actually kill anything. And me and Lion end up splitting the XP. Luckily, this Lion was nice enough to not finish the creep off. So the problem with AA's play is that even if he had gotten the pull off, imagine like these 3 creeps weren't here, then the lane would have stalled against this camp, but it wouldn't have died. So rather than prioritizing the camp that's not going to kill it, maybe if this was like an ice camp or a harpy camp, it would have been really nice to do this, because he would have effectively denied a bunch of creeps. But instead, we're going to keep the lane near their tower for a very long time. And since he did this and left it there, so this camp keeps pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling, he's not going to be able to stack it, and there's also going to be no opportunity to pull again in the next minute. So the lane's constantly in a spot that we don't want it. We want it back here. It's not over here. We talked about in the support, or in the lane equilibrium video that's coming out recently, that the farther the lane up is, the more danger you are of dying. And we see exactly this, that AA is trying to do his job as a support, calls for my assistance, I come over, but he gets caught out of position, and he is going to end up taking a lot of damage, forcing to salve himself. So another thing as support is that based on however many creeps there are, is a very important indication of which team is supposed to be aggressive. I talk to my carry players about this all the time in their coaching sessions. I see this. We talked about maintenance of lane equilibrium. For supports, it's not really your job to take care of this lane equilibrium, but it's your job to be aware of what's happening. So I see this as a carry. That means I'm completely useless. Like, I don't want to leave, because if I leave, these 6-8 creeps are going to walk into my tower, and I'm going to miss them. And also, if I try to like fight them, I'm going to be tanking a bunch of creeps. So it's just a really bad trade situation whenever they have more creeps than me. Yet AA is playing super aggressive over here. And it's the same thing on the flip side. If we see Brewmaster's perspective, he has a bunch of creeps and I have none, and he's like, damn, I see an opportunity to be aggressive. And since my AA is being aggressive himself, this is just what we call out of position, and this can often be determined based on how many creeps there are over here. Notice how I'm getting pushed back by these creeps. I need to be stuck over here, and he's going to end up going down for first blood. Not much I can really do about it. So as a support, an important dynamic to gauge in your lanes is who's supposed to frontline between you and your carry. For instance, like, obviously in this lane, he's a ranged squishy support, and I'm a lifestealer, pretty tanky strength hero. Most of the time, we want me to be further up in the lane. We want me to be more in danger, so it gets the opponent to go on me rather than go on him. So like him playing over here is an example where that's not good positioning. But in this case, it's a combination of who's supposed to be in front, and then how much of a threat the opponents are at any given moment in the lane. So what I'm looking at here is that when the opponents cast their spells, these heroes are super low stat heroes. This guy hits for 60 level 4, and this guy hits for 69, nice, level 4 as well. They're just not scary heroes except for their abilities. So this is a situation where when they both have their spells up, it's super important that we play conservative, and AA does not go aggressive. But the second that they cast spells, that dynamic flips instantly. And as a support, that's actually a really important understanding to have, and it's difficult, but if you can keep it in mind, then you'll be much better at catching the opponent when they're being overly aggressive. So what you're going to see here is that the opponent tries to cast Impale on me and the Brewmaster Thunderclap. And at this point, I said, dude, I dodged it, go on this guy, just hit them. And his response was, I don't have any spells. And if you look at my hero doesn't use spells. So this is an example of a matchup where when nobody has any spells, our heroes are way better. Because even though I only hit for 67, I have an ability that slows their movement speed, and I also have a bunch of attack speed from this and my base attack speed, but I also have an ability that trades off of passive. So when nobody has any abilities, we are way stronger. And I tell him to go, and he just kind of sits back here, sitting back, and look at, they're scared of just me. And I'm just telling this guy, just hit them. Just hit them. Please, just hit them. And now he finally goes once his abilities are up. So a lot of support players think of their own strength based on their own abilities. But something that a lot of support players can start to consider is the weakness of the opponent when they don't have their spells, And sometimes you don't need your spells in order to be aggressive. If you actually want more support content, please like, comment, subscribe, donate, sign up for my OnlyFans. I take yachts, I take cars, beds, anything. So if you want to support, make sure you do your part. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Actually, not the other stuff. Bye.